This video builds upon my last one, called Trucker's Warning, AI Privacy Threat and Data Loss, Exposed. After this introductory section, which ties into the rest of what I want to talk about, I'll circle back around to dig deeper into surveillance capitalism at about Chapter 7 and onward. This is just the first half of 6 chapters, Chapters 1 through 3, while Chapters 4 through 6 will be uploaded next, out of a total of 24 written chapters. I had to break it into pieces because InVideo.ai just can't process the word count, like pretty much everything else about this platform. Anyways, enjoy. The Trucker's Warning video was an exposé about a data loss I suffered while using Google's Gemini AI. To be clear, I'm not claiming it was an intentional lockout. I honestly don't know if it was intentional or if it wasn't. It could have been deliberate, or it might just reflect carelessness and unprofessionalism on Google's part. But the only solid fact here is this. I lost easily over a month of my work. Questions, answers, discussions, just gone. Wiped out from Google's Gemini app, in an instant, or rather, my access to it. That's a significant amount of information. That's the reality I'm facing. And that's a serious concern. The AI just brushed it off as a glitch, and maybe also referenced a technical error, but I don't really think so. I mean, wiping out over a month's worth of work twice? It also happened several months ago when I was compiling information for a series of videos about hazmat. Of what was originally intended to be split into 3 videos, only 2 videos were ever posted. When Google transitioned from the original way of accessing Gemini, it used to be through their Google website, and then they moved it over to the Gemini app. Everything I'd compiled up to that point was suddenly just no longer there. Like it never existed. I had completed and uploaded 2 hazmat videos to YouTube, but I never finished the 3rd video of a 3-part series because all of the information I had compiled for well over a month, and probably more, was no longer available to me. Over a month of compiled work, deleted, twice, 2.5 months of effort. That's a hell of a technical error. I reached out to Google using various methods, including email and LinkedIn, and several other ways that AI advised me to try, but they never responded. Never. This is coming up on a year ago, and I still haven't received a response from Google about that, from when I was literally pleading for assistance to locate and download all that research I had done. As a content creator on YouTube, I think that's a very inconsiderate way of handling this kind of situation, since, as a video maker, it's my job to compile information, cross-check it for accuracy, and then use what I've compiled through Google searches, website searches, AI, and what I've written based on what I know from over 20 years working in the field, my work, a small role or subset of the hazmat industry, and to develop my written scripts from which I make my videos, and that I post to YouTube, which is of course owned by Google. The YouTube platform benefits from my work and my time, and these videos become resources available on the internet, and about any given subject, including hazmat. Google, as the owner of YouTube, benefits from my work and my time. So why Google would simply choose to snub me is a little unsettling. Anyways, back to my most recent issue with data loss, or more accurately, data grabbing. Even if it's still in Google's systems, my access to my data was blocked, and thus, for all intents and purposes, from my perspective, gone. As Google likely still has that data retained in its memory systems, my intellectual property, by blocking my access, they make it worthless to me. Weeks of accumulated hours of searching and compiling information, with no monetary exchange for my time, and with only the hope, currently, of eventually achieving a monetized channel. All this, while still remaining valuable to them, all of that compiled information still in their possession. Gemini's terms of service says I own my input, my words, but that Google gets a non-exclusive, worldwide, royalty-free, perpetual license to use, modify, and train on it, forever. Ownership without access? That's worthless. They keep my work, I can't see it, can't read it, can't use it. That might not be theft in a courtroom, ask a lawyer to explain it because I can't. But I see it as theft of my time, my effort, my life. Although perhaps more accurately, from a legal perspective, it's likely termed as a breach of trust and access. How would you see it? Weeks of my life, gone, but still retained in their memory, for their use. The real-world truth here is, Google profits from your data. They block your access while keeping full license. They sell ad targeting based on it. That is selling your data's value. How is this reasonable? The various generated output from my questions might be their property, but the questions and logic, the script progression and the direction I've traveled in compiling the information for those scripts that are used as the basis of my videos are my own intellectual creation and property. Call it a team effort. It would be like them claiming ownership over some number of bricks that I used to assemble a house. Now, a notable amount of their generated material was used in my script compilation, but definitely not all. Some came from other sources, Google and online websites, and other parts were written directly by me. Without me, the house, or video in this case, never would have gotten built. I was the one who used my time and effort to build the house, not for Google's benefit, but for mutual benefit. Then, Google blocked my access to my work, that house, while keeping the data, as well as the right to sell it and keep the money, leaving me out in the cold, without any benefits received from what I created. That creates a problem, folks. A problem from which Google has protected itself by cloaking itself in a legal body known as its terms of service. This body of terms and conditions cloaks them legally as a corporate entity, while also simultaneously incorporating deceptive practices. And this is according to the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, in lawsuits against Google for data collection deception, as well as lawmakers, regulators, and plaintiffs in multiple lawsuits who are sounding the alarm. They're worried about hidden practices, like unauthorized data scraping, and deceptive promises about how our information is handled. These practices shield them from consequences. They grab your data, then hold it hostage from you. I may own it, but if I can't see it and I can't use it, what good is it to me? All that work for nothing. That's not legal theft, perhaps, but it is a hostage situation. Their actions might be legal under policies drafted by Ivy League-trained corporate lawyers, packed with dense legalese and near-impenetrable terms of service. But this also presents very real ethical issues. The following is a brief overview of the core ethical and legal issues surrounding the sudden loss of AI conversation data. I've included this section because it introduces and explains the overall direction of this video, as will become clear as we move forward. After this ethical overview, or perhaps a lack of ethics, might be more appropriate, I will circle back to surveillance capitalism, the real topic of this video. This ethics argument falls under three main headings: data privacy and ownership, user autonomy and trust, and transparency and accountability. The Great AI Data Heist. Why Google deleting your chat history is honestly stealing your intellectual property. Data privacy and ownership. When the chat window goes blank, it's not just a glitch, it's a theft. We submit our questions and our work to Google's AI, trusting it to be our personal assistant or even our co-creator. But when they suddenly eliminate access to those conversations, they aren't just deleting text, they're erasing personal records, ideas, and memories. Conversations with AI are personal logs. They're a source of your creative output. Regardless of the fine print buried in the terms of service, the sudden removal of this data is a personal violation. Think about it. AI uses your conversations to train and improve its models. When access is revoked, you can't verify that your information isn't being repurposed beyond your original intent. This isn't just unethical, it actually violates the principle of purpose limitation, which is a key protection in laws like California's CCPA. Purpose limitation means companies can only use your data for the reasons they told you up front, with no repurposing without your say-so. CCPA, or the California Consumer Protection Act, was California's law from 2018. It started pretty basic: no, delete, opt out. Then there's CPRA, the California Privacy Rights Act, which, as of 2023, really supercharged things. It added real purpose limits, data minimization, and the CPPA, that's the California Privacy Protection Agency, which is basically the enforcement agency, or you could call them California's privacy police. The CPPA was created in 2020 to enforce the CCPA and CPRA, fine violators up to $7,500 per breach, and educate the public. Before all of this, there was just the Attorney General. Now, California's law actually has some teeth. So that gives us one state with muscle, out of 50 states. The rest? Well, nothing. The GDPR, or General Data Protection Regulation, which covers Europe, actually pioneered purpose limitation back in 2018. That means companies can only use your data for the exact reason you gave it. No repurposing without your consent, and it gives citizens full control, with massive fines for violations. But here's the thing. the GDPR covers 450 million Europeans. CCPA and CPRA, they cover 40 million Californians. There is no federal law, only 18 states have weaker versions, while 45+ states have even less, to zero protection. That means 310 million Americans have no rights, no legal protection or recourse. Sure, we can FOIA government files, but not our own data from Google. So, in summary, the GDPR is Europe's solution to this issue. It's just one law granting full rights, and it comes with some massive fines. And what about the USA? Well, there is no federal law. California stands alone, thanks to state-enacted regulation. And, while over 45 states have basically zero protection. The fix? Pass a national GDPR-style law. One rule: real rights with real teeth. But would it be worth it? The time, the resources, the money, and the effort? Absolutely. This is your data we're talking about. Data about you, your life. It's time to fight for the rights that the Constitution intended to guarantee you. If our founding fathers could have foreseen computer technology, artificial intelligence, and politicians whose oaths to the Constitution mean nothing, who prefer to fill their pockets with money, are at the tech industry's behest, and are a danger to society. These people who need to be removed from office. I'm sure they would have addressed this. They sought to protect this country, their creation. In a time when well-intentioned politicians are outnumbered by deceitful ones 50-1, lawyers have manipulated the legal landscape, where what is stated often means something very different. Loopholes prevail. Corporations are gaining power never envisioned. And some politicians are exceeding their allowed mandates, power they were entrusted with, such that it's actually damaging the very institution that granted them that power in the first place. And while legislative and judicial branches fail in their constitutionally appointed responsibilities to counterbalance, if they could have foreseen it, they'd have addressed it. The forefathers expected that people would cherish what was created, would be the last line of defense, not stand idly by as it is dismantled. And that assumption is failing miserably. Change is happening in front of everyone, rapidly, and the pushback is not near as strong as it needs to be. The Constitution is the law of the land, not a man. Now, unlike CCPA in California, or GDPR in Europe, the FTC fines give you no right to see your data, no right to delete it. Just a paycheck, a constant flow of money to the government. You know this is wrong. I don't have an issue with the Treasury being able to collect money to fund legitimate government spending, but here, in this case, the US government is complicit. Consumers are getting harmed, and rather than taking steps to correct it, the government actually profits off it. Let them keep the fines, but they should enact a law that protects everyone in this country, strengthens protections for we the people, and gives us rights over data that is our own information. We should have the right to see our data, and we should have the right to delete that data. On demand. Without excuse. Currently, the government fines, profits, and does nothing. That's not oversight, that's complicity. Like the Freedom of Information Act and Europe's GDPR, the US needs to enact this into federal law, covering every state and every person in this country, a body of, at least, minimal protections. Show me everything. Delete it when I say. Individual states are always welcome to enact more stringent versions of these protections. Otherwise, we've got a government profiting while people are being victimized. Tech companies cash in, even while paying the fines, as just another cost of doing business. A complete perversion of the reason for the fines, and thereby completely nullifying the intent of these regulations. Let's call it a loophole, shall we? The US government cashes in, with a significant income stream. And you? While technology firms surveil you and monetize you, and sell it to anyone, including the government, and our beloved government profits, while learning more and more about you, using information you provided online and never in your wildest dreams intended for them to have, you are left exposed, and with nothing. All this without a warrant, and in direct violation of the intent behind the United States Constitution's Amendment No. 4. The Fourth Amendment establishes a fundamental safeguard against arbitrary government intrusion. Core protections include protection from unreasonable searches. Individuals, their residences, vehicles, and personal effects are secure from unjustified government action. Warrant requirement. Law enforcement must obtain a judicial warrant prior to conducting a search. The probable cause standard means any warrant must be supported by sworn evidence demonstrating a reasonable belief that a crime has occurred. And the particularity clause. The warrant must clearly specify the location to be searched and the items or persons to be seized. Recognized exceptions, like consent, incidents to lawful arrest, or exigent circumstances, remain narrowly defined to preserve the amendment's intent. The Fourth Amendment promises that no government agent can rifle through your life without a judge-signed warrant and rock-solid proof of wrongdoing. That is what the U.S. Constitution's Fourth Amendment states. But currently, that protection applies only to the U.S. government, and not to private corporations like Google and others. And since they, and every other technology firm, are not the government, but rather private companies, corporations, when they gather up data on your every click, chat, and thought, then bundle it into a fat dossier and sell it to the highest bidder, including Uncle Sam, no warrant is required. They can collect, repurpose, lock, or sell your every online word and move without ever needing a warrant. They then package that data and sell it to anyone, including the U.S. government, which simply writes a check instead of getting a subpoena. This lets the state obtain your most private information without the constitutional safeguards the founders intended, turning a brilliant protection into a profitable loophole that harms citizens. And while regulators and lawmakers look the other way and pocket the fines, suddenly your secrets are theirs. No oath, no judge, no questions. That's not a bug. That's the business model and a partnership. That is the technology industry not being held accountable, as per the rule of law. And for the record, the Constitution is the law of the land. Everything else must fall beneath it, including laws affecting corporations. If the founders had seen this coming, they would have shut it down in the Bill of Rights. Again, the United States Constitution is the law of the land, not Google, or its so-called terms of service. That the United States government is embracing and willfully participating in a practice that is a glaring violation and perversion of the intent of the United States Constitution is honestly pretty noteworthy. It's a practice that does not protect the population, but rather knowingly harms people, while the government stands by and does nothing to change it, because the U.S. government is profiting from it. As one man cleverly framed it, we're going to go on offense, not just on defense, maximum lethality, not tepid legality, violent effect, not politically correct. In other words, what we're seeing is the encapsulation and announcement of a new ethos, a new era, stretching the boundaries of the Constitution and law, applicable in war and business. We're gonna do what we want, the law be damned. Google, take note. It would seem you've been given a green light. It's about to get worse with AI. That's surveillance capitalism, in action. User autonomy and trust. Every interaction you have with the conversational AI is built on implicit trust. But when they suddenly revoke access to your data, that trust is betrayed. This creates a serious erosion of trust, making creators and users less willing to engage with any AI service in the future. Most users just don't have the time or the legal background to really comprehend these massive, constantly changing privacy policies. When a tech giant takes your data away without clear, specific, and informed consent, it's a fundamental ethical violation. It doesn't matter if it's technically allowed under some legalistic loophole, it's an abuse of power. The consequence isn't just legal, it's personal. Losing conversations causes distress and a feeling of powerlessness and vulnerability. For users who developed a rapport with the AI, the sudden loss of that relationship is a psychological betrayal. Large language models are often called a black box. You can't see how they make decisions. But deleting your conversation history makes the AI's internal processes and data collection even more opaque. It hides how the system has been trained by your past interactions, turning the black box into a completely locked vault. Without that chat history, you cannot hold the service provider accountable. You can't check for AI inaccuracies, biases, or errors that may have influenced your decisions or your work. Ethical practice requires a company to provide ample notice and a clear explanation for any change that impacts your access to personal data. Suddenly terminating access without notice is a violation of the principle of fairness. This practice exposes providers to potential legal liability, and invites intense regulatory scrutiny in every jurisdiction with strong data protection laws. When a company eliminates your access to your own data, they are fundamentally failing to protect consumer data and are prioritizing their own business model over your rights as a creator and a user. It's going to get worse with AI. Part 2 will be uploaded over the next few days. We name surveillance capitalism, expose the corporate-state alliance, and show how one AI glitch could end a family on the highway. Subscribe and turn on notifications. This only gets darker. This is the first in a multi-video series on AI, data theft, and surveillance capitalism, with chapters 4 through 6 coming soon, and chapters 7 through 24 coming later, over the next few weeks. All through the eyes of a trucker. This video was narrated by Amanda B. Reckoned With and presented by Through the Eyes of a Trucker. I'm grateful for your time and support of my creative work and channel. I hope to continue to deliver relevant, educational trucking content moving forward. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Thank you for your support of my creative endeavors and my channel. You have a great day, God bless you, and keep on trucking.